We're very fortunate to have with us today Governor Phil Bredesen. Governor Bredesen is no stranger to Northeast Tennessee, and since being elected as Tennessee's 48th governor in 2003, he has made numerous visits to this region, including several events for the membership of our chamber. I know at Domtar we are particularly proud to have hosted the governor in 2004. Our employees still talk about that visit quite often. Phil Bredesen is committed to accountability and open government, and with a pledge to make state government operate within its means and be more responsive to Tennesseans. He led Tennessee out of fiscal crisis to financial stability without raising taxes or cutting funding for his number one priority, education. Under his leadership has come the launch of Cover Tennessee, a series of health insurance programs for the uninsured, the Meth-Free Tennessee Initiative, which has reduced the prevalence of methamphetamines in his state, the Imagination Library, which provides a free book each month to children under age 5 in all 95 counties, and one of the country's highest quality pre-K programs. He has also fundamentally restructured and expanded long-term health care benefits that are available to seniors in Tennessee, and is committed to raising standards and accountability in education. Governor Bredesen has created new jobs and opportunities for families, including this summer's announcement that Volkswagen will build an assembly plant in Tennessee. He is also committed to preserving more special places in Tennessee for future generations. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our governor, Governor Phil Bredesen.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Charlie, for that introduction. And to my friend Miles Bredesen, as well as everybody here, thank you for inviting me to be here with you today. I'm glad to have this chance to come to talk, and I do appreciate the opportunity to do so. During the time that I've been involved in public life in some way, first as mayor and now as governor, I would say among the steadiest friends that I've had have been the chambers across the state. They bring together in one room so many of the people who have interests that transcend individual parties or individual regions, and it's been a great working relationship, and just a chance for me to say to each and every one of you, thank you for the friendship over these past 6 years. I think we've gotten some good things done together, and I certainly look forward to, Lord willing, 2 more of them in my case as governor. I thought I would use the time today to talk mostly about where we stand in the budget situation. I do want to open it up at the end, not just talk to you here from the microphone, but to hear from you as well, and we'll certainly do so. As I begin, I certainly want to acknowledge my various colleagues who are here. They were introduced before, but specifically Lieutenant Governor Ron Ramsey, who flew up with me, and we had a chance to catch up and talk. I know that Speaker Kent Williams was hoping to be here today and was not able to make it, but I certainly am ready to sit down and work with them along with Jason Mumpower and other members of the General Assembly. There have been a lot of changes in the General Assembly recently, and there may be some major office in Tennessee which is not currently held by someone from Northeast Tennessee. I'm not quite sure which one it is at the moment. But I do want to report that Ron Ramsey, who certainly is a friend of mine, has been, just really kind, reaching across party lines. Every time a job opens up in Washington, he's right on the phone. He calls. He says nice things about me. And Ron, I just want to tell you how much I really appreciate that. I believe he's working on a grand slam for Northeast Tennessee. It has been a tumultuous and I know emotional few weeks in the legislature, and I just want to say to all of you what I believe is going to happen, that we have to put this stuff aside now and get down to work for the people of Tennessee, starting with the budget we have. We are going to have to work together. These are treacherous financial waters. There certainly is a serious situation in the country. There's certainly a serious situation here in our state. And everyone I know, and certainly my colleagues sitting at this table down here, I think first and foremost in the end about what's best for the citizens they represent, and I do look forward to working with each and every one of you to chart our way through these times. Now, to put it in perspective, there is simply no question that we are in the worst financial situation as a country certainly since the Second World War. Our revenues in the state continue to decline. The January numbers are just coming in and getting audited. They are below even the projections we made back last September and October. So we're having to continually adjust and deal with a very difficult situation. We certainly are experiencing a downturn here in Tennessee, both in terms of the economy and in terms of state revenues. And I want to be real clear that, those of us in state government, we certainly have a job to do to focus on what's going on in the state in terms of revenues and government services that we provide. But I don't want any of us to ever forget that for whatever pain we are feeling in state government, there's a great deal more pain out there among people and who are concerned about losing their jobs and companies who are having to lay off people and keep our eye on all the things that we have, the responsibilities we have and the things that we've got to do to help ameliorate some of these circumstances and get it turned around as quickly as possible. We are going to manage in the state through these times. We have made some good decisions together. We're well positioned to weather this storm. The reserves of the state are vastly higher than they have ever been in the past, and that has made this year, for example, a difficult year as opposed to a disastrous, panic-filled year. I'm certainly committed to maintaining the fiscal soundness of the state and the bond ratings that go with it and all those things, and I believe we're on a good track to do that. To do that, we are having to look at making some difficult and painful cuts. I think a part of the reason why this is so important is nobody knows how long this is going to last. I hope it's a V, and after a few more months it starts up again. There's a lot of people who are thinking it's maybe a long U with spending some time down here with low revenues before things come back. And I think it's particularly important to make sure that we position ourselves so that if that is in fact the case, which I hope it isn't, we in the state can continue to provide the basic services we need and continue to operate effectively and efficiently. I have always looked on this job as one of stewardship. And one of the things that's very important to me is to leave this state, when I leave it in a couple of years here, to leave it in a sound fiscal situation, whether my successor is a Democrat or a Republican, but to leave it in a situation where it can continue forward and we can be level-headed about the decisions that we have to make. I do have a good working relationship, I think it's fair to say, with Lieutenant Governor Ramsey, with Speaker Williams as well. We already have had a number of conversations about how we are going to achieve this, including as late as this morning when we all had breakfast together down in Nashville. The budgets that we're preparing has been an ongoing process for several months now. We've made continued adjustments as the revenues have continued to fall. We are at the moment anticipating, absent any federal stimulus, and I'll talk about that in a moment, a budget shortfall next year of around $900 million state dollars. And of course, it's more than that when you add in the federal money that goes with some of those dollars. We are committed to fully funding the state's funding formula for K through 12 education, the so-called BEP, and the pre-K program that goes with that. In order to do that, we've prepared a budget that has some very deep and painful cuts. It's about 15% across the board, which, following on the cuts that we made last spring in the budget as the economy started to go south, do represent a level of cuts that truly are painful and truly get into way beyond waste and things you can easily change and make some cuts in some fundamental programs that everyone would agree is attractive. Higher education, for example, is substantially hit in a budget like that, and I think most of us would feel that that's an area which we ought to try and protect the funding for as best as possible. At the time we prepared this budget and put it to bed, which was early January, to get prepared for presentation about now to the General Assembly, we didn't know what was going to happen in terms of a federal stimulus package. It had not been taken up in the Congress at that point. And so we elected to take an approach of let's prepare this very painful budget that will show people how we are going to get through this if we get no help out of Washington. And then when we know what we have, we'll submit an amendment to that budget and move forward from there. Since then, there has been considerable progress on that. The U.S. House of Representatives, as you know, has passed a stimulus package. It is now being considered by the Senate, and it certainly looks like before the end of February we should have a very good idea. We should know exactly what is in that package. So what Ron and Kent Williams and I have discussed, along with other members of the legislature, is actually just postponing submitting the budget for a period of time until we actually do know what is in the budget, since it makes no sense to have a budget out there which scares everybody to death and we know is not what the world is actually going to be like. So this year will be a little different from previous years, I think, in that rather than submit a budget now and work on it, we probably will be submitting a budget in March, and probably in late March, that incorporates the effect of the federal stimulus package, and which will certainly be a far less draconian budget than the one we have in front of us. I'll give you an example. For example, based on what is in the House package, we were looking at laying off about 2,300 state employees to get through this, which is always painful. It's very, as anyone in the business world knows, that is always a painful thing to do. As a result of the federal stimulus package, it looks like we may be able to reduce that number to zero. We certainly will be able to reduce it to a much vastly lower number. And I'm old-fashioned enough to kind of believe that having a job is just at the heart of almost everything. And anything that I can possibly do to help in-state government preserve jobs, and certainly to help each and every one of you preserve those in your own organizations, I certainly am going to try to make happen. I think even when we have tough times like this budget, it's important for us not to lose sight of the fundamentals. I think we've had some good times and some tougher times in the 6 years that I've been governor. But I keep coming back to, if we balance the budget honestly, we keep education our number one priority, we make some good sound investments in job creation, if we keep our eye on those balls, Tennessee will do just fine, and we'll come through these things fine. I think we've always been a state with an enormous amount of common sense, and these are the times that really does become very, very helpful. So those basic priorities are not going to change no matter what kind of a budget we have. Just because we don't have the resources this year that we maybe did a couple of years ago when we had a very good year in terms of revenues doesn't mean we're going to lose our momentum. We've made some great progress in those areas in the past years, even though we didn't have a whole lot of money to do it with. Sometimes when there's not a lot of money around, a lot of people in the political world just kind of shrug their shoulders and say, well, there's nothing for me to do. I think actually there's lots of things to do. They're just different things than you do in times that are very, very good financially. We have started the process of trying to run the budget down as early as last May. We put in place a hard hiring freeze at that point, which really does make a difference extended out over a period of time. We did some other things like freezing travel, which are more for effect than for the real dollars they save, but it helps to, I think, show people that we are serious and that these are things that they need to pay attention to, the pennies as well as the dollars, and that has helped us tremendously in getting through this year. We did a voluntary buyout program last summer, you may remember, where we offered people some money out of our cash reserves. We reduced the size of state government on a permanent basis with that by about 1,500 employees. And I think really importantly, we asked departments to rethink the way they deliver services to taxpayers, and they really did. Our Department of Human Services, for example, used it as an opportunity to really flatten the organization. They have offices in almost every county, and they had an enormous superstructure that had built up over the years on top of those offices. And Jenna Lodge really used this occasion to really just slice right through that and flatten this out in a way that people who run good modern companies would recognize. And these things are not always bad. I hate to admit it, but when I used to be in the business world, I think I ran my business better in the tough years than I did in the fat ones. And I think those of us in government can use these times of lean resources to rethink some things and maybe get some things done politically that would be much more difficult in good times. And I'm proud to say that a number of our departments are really stepping up and taking a fresh look at things. I mentioned Department of Human Services. Our Department of Corrections is actually doing a great job right now of rethinking some things that they do. Our Department of Mental Health and Retardation is doing some great work with rethinking how they go about doing things. So I think we will emerge from this a much stronger and a better managed state government as well. We made an awful lot of progress in K through 12 education this past year. About a year ago, the State Board of Education, after a long process that involved traveling around the state and meeting with the business leaders and community leaders, including right here, about what the needs of businesses were for young people coming out of our high schools, coming out of our colleges. As a result of that, the State Board completely changed the standards in Tennessee. This was a major change in our education system and was driven in my mind by the fact that I thought we were just not being honest with ourselves about where we were. An example, we measure the mathematical proficiency of 8th graders when they graduate from 8th grade. When we measured it, we told, I think it was 82% of them that they were proficient in math at the 8th grade level. When those same people take the national standards test for mathematics in 8th grades, 21% of them were judged proficient. Now, you can't explain a difference that large by anything other than we've got really low standards and easy tests here in Tennessee. And while people can disagree ideologically about what the best way to change education is to better educate our kids, and there's plenty of room for discussion, I think that anyone, whether they're liberal or conservative or somewhere in between, would agree that having an honest statement about exactly where we are is the starting point that we need. Tennessee has made some enormous strides in that. We've gotten national recognition in the education community for what has gone on in the development of standards, and we're going to continue tracking that in the years ahead. I know the business community is well represented in this room, and I ask your help in keeping everyone's feet to the fire on these standards. The tough thing that's going to happen is now that we've toughened up the standards, there are going to be some schools who used to think they were doing great and maybe aren't doing so great when you start measuring accurately. And the temptation is to say, well, rather than improve the schools, why don't we just change the testing back to where it was? Business people in this room, I truly solicit your help in making sure that does not happen in this state. And we need to keep our focus on asking a lot of our children, asking a lot of our teachers and our school boards and our superintendents, and being willing to put the money up that it takes for them to perform their jobs. We're now working on the assessments for these. That's a process that's going on right now. We're also working to, and I think have successfully dramatically opened up the teacher pipeline to get more qualified and talented people into the profession. The state school board changed the rules for the licensure of teachers back in November in some ways that will make it much easier to bring in teachers from other kinds of backgrounds, from people who did not decide when they were freshmen or sophomore in college that they wanted to go into teaching, but who have a great deal to bring to the classroom. And these changes have been very, very quiet. They don't get the attention on TV. They don't get the attention in the newspapers that some sort of a budget crisis does. But I promise you the two changes that have taken place in 2008 will much more fundamentally transform the education system in the state of Tennessee than anything else that has happened here recently. And to the school board and to the state school board and to the school boards and the superintendents around the state who helped make this happen, I really offer my congratulations and thanks. We had a great year last year on job creation. It's been interesting as the economy has gone south. Our Department of economic development has never been busier. Matt Kismer, the commissioner, probably has a fatter pipeline right now than he has had at any point since he's been commissioner these last 6 years. I think what's going on is that as the economy gets tougher, companies are looking for places to do business in a low-tax, low-cost environment in a way that they might not be looking at a time when times are good. And Tennessee is very, very well positioned to benefit from that. Obviously, the superstar of the year was the recruiting of the Volkswagen plant, which I think is going to have an enormous impact on all of East Tennessee. And the Volkswagen plant itself is really just the tip of the iceberg of the other stuff that will come with that. We also landed a major player in the solar industry, in the so-called Hemlock Corporation up in the Clarksville area, which is investing a couple of $1 billion in some very basic processes there, and will help cement Tennessee's position as a leader in this field as well. Just this morning, I had a chance to, before I came in here, to meet with the leadership of AGC, a company you have right here in this part of our state, well positioned to also play a huge role, I think, in the growth of these alternative energy opportunities. Let me talk just for a second about this field of alternative energy, and I really think Northeast Tennessee is positioned to be on the leading edge of this growth. I think there is a growing consensus in our country that we can't tie our economy, just to the price of oil alone in the way that it has become tied over the last generation. I think we clearly are going to have to look at broad sources of energy. The time for the development of renewable energy is absolutely right now. We're beginning to see, I think, in this whole area, and particularly in regard to solar, some of the same opportunities that Tennessee captured in the automotive sector maybe 25 years ago. I mentioned earlier Hemlock becoming an anchor for that industry. What they're actually doing is locating a polycrystalline silicon manufacturing operation. That's the core, that's the raw material for the manufacture of crystalline solar panels in Clarksville. It's a major investment. It'll see the creation of some 500 jobs, immediately the potential for many more. They have acquired a site up there which starts out at 1,200 acres, which will hold a lot more than 500 jobs. If we play our cards right, I think at both the Chattanooga location and up in Clarksville, there will be cranes on those sites for a long time to come. I think that this clean energy sector really represents an enormous opportunity for the state, and these kinds of green-collar jobs are exactly the kind of 21st century jobs that we want to see here in our state, and we're committed to nurturing them and that technology sector in any way we can. About a year ago, I created, through an executive order, an energy task force to look at energy consumption and production across the state, and Miles Burdine has been a key member of that task force. He's the chair of the Clean Technology Working Group. So we're seriously looking at ways that Tennessee can be on the leading edge of alternative energy production. And I think it has great potential for job creation. I think too often, I guess what I'd like you to remember about this is that too often when we think of saving energy and green energy, we think in terms of having to give something up. We have to have smaller cars, we have to pay more for electricity, we have to, turn our lights off more often. I think the right way to look at it is as an enormous economic development activity. There are going to be huge investments in energy and alternative forms of energy in the years ahead, both in this country and worldwide. And Tennessee is as well positioned as anybody can be to be a part of that growth. I would love to see this be something that we are known for in the way that California has Silicon Valley and Boston has Route 128 and all those areas that really were the locus for an enormous amount of investment and development over the years. And I believe we're positioning ourselves to do so. We've been playing in this field for a long time. The coal gasification program right here at Eastman It's over 25 years old now. It was the first of its kind in the country. One more building block that I think can help us to be a real player in this area. Let me close now and open it up to you. I just want to say that I guess that no matter what we see from the federal government in terms of stimulus money, we're still going to have to make some difficult decisions in this year's budget and going forward. Even with the large amounts of money that they're offering us, it's 2-year money. We need to not be spending it as if it was going to happen, it was going to continue on forever. We need to be working toward getting our budgets at a level that are sustainable at the end of that period of time, at the end of the availability of that money. And I think it's important that we also keep our government moving forward as we do this. There's a lot of people in our communities who are feeling the effects of this. They're feeling it financially. They're feeling it emotionally. And for every person who has lost a job or lost health care, there's probably 5 of them who are concerned about losing their jobs or concerned about losing their health care and so on. And I ask each and every one of you to reach out to these people and to do everything you possibly can to help companies to survive through this process and to keep these jobs flowing and to minimize the impact on the community. Even when people do lose a job, it can be hard to get back on your feet, and there's going to be a continued need for support. Nobody knows how long this economic downturn is going to ask. One of the great things about our state has always been its sense of community and its sense of willingness to reach out and help. And I think the months ahead are really going to test us in that regard, and I ask each of you for your help in that. And let me also just, in closing, say once again I'm committed to working with the General Assembly this year for the good of all Tennesseans. I made a call when I first came into office that the way governors should operate is to try to figure out how to work with the General Assembly and not play off them, as happens in so many other places in the country. I think it has worked well for our state over these past 6 years, and I certainly intend to continue it. And last of all, I want to just thank the Chamber for something, and that's for your ongoing support of Imagination Library and Books from Birth, and for the help in getting that program established here. We've worked together on this since October of 2004 now. It's been a long time. There are over 10,000 Sullivan County children that have been served with more than 200,000 books at this point. Thank you for what you've done. Please remember we need your continued involvement. Nobody in politics can ever make a speech without asking for some money at the end, so please help the Imagination Library program to continue to grow and prosper. Thank you for the help you've given it in the past. And thank you again once very, very much for the chance to come here and have a chance to talk to you today. Thank you.